what is the next subtopic? I think we're
COVID.
In COVID. All right, we finally made it. We're to COVID. So we're gonna do this chronologically. So it was in February, right? That Bob Woodward interviewed Donald Trump. Donald Trump said that Xi Jinping just told him that the virus was airborne and that he doesn't want to spread a panic, so he's not going to say anything about it. Then he travel bans on China in February. That was then his next move, right? There was a WHO and CDC testing debacle. They were testing other coronaviruses and each time, and it was complicating everything. New York and Detroit have insane numbers, highest in the country. There were some success stories around the world. South Korea did pretty good. New Zealand did pretty good. All of them had really good testing and tracing and travel bans and what else do they have in common? Oh yeah, messaging. They had really good messaging. Meanwhile, we got Trump not saying it's a hoax, but using the word hoax, and then also saying it's fine. Everything's fine. We've got it.
It'll go away like a miracle.
It'll go away eventually. Don't worry about it. We've got we've got lockdowns around the country, massive unemployment obviously because everybody's got to shut down, and the economy goes to the toilet for working people, but then they give a bunch of money to banks and the banks prop up. So and then we've got the CARES Act, the HEROES Act that didn't pass, legislative and executive stallings. So that brings us up to date. So what would you say? I guess I'll start with Andrew. What would you say? Actually, I want to start with Mike, because you said that after the election, you think it's going to kind of get under control. So do you think that there's some politics being played over here? Or do you accept the science?
You know what science? Everybody who says follow the science has ignored a few scientists. So I think it is what it is.
Dr. Fauci. Let's just say Dr. Fauci, because he's the head one.
And Trump also says that it is what it is.
I think there's...
Yeah, but some libertarians don't. I mean, they're anti-maskers and stuff, so it's worth asking him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the Barrington Declaration right now. That's Dr. Martin Kulldorff, professor of medicine at Harvard University, biostatistician and epidemiologist.
What does Kulldorff say?
Yes, Dr. Sunita Gupta, professor at Oxford University and epidemiologist with expertise in immunology, vaccine development, and mathematical modeling. And Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, professor at Stanford University, physician and epidemiologist. Dr. Fauci is a virologist.
No, what did they say? What do they say though, Mike?
That shutdowns aren't the answer.
Okay.
And I don't believe that either. And yes, it's a virus, and yes, it's killing people, and yes, it has to be dealt with, but I don't know when we've ever dealt with it in such a way. Or when, like you started the show with, where is the government testing? Where is the government testing? Where was the government testing for any other virus that's ever occurred? Like, why is that a sudden expectation of government?
To be fair, this
is
not
as many people are dying.
I don't believe it's unprecedented.
In modern history, it is. It just, I mean, how is it?
The Hong Kong flu killed about an equal amount of the population.
The which flu?
Hong Kong.
The Hong
Kong flu. Well, I don't know if I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
Hong Kong flu. I don't know it.
Woodstock happened the same year, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. But we do know that the flu killed 80,000 people just a few years ago. And what was where was all the goddamn government testing then, you know? If you're going to draw a distinction, like there's a magic line at 100,000 that 80,000 doesn't touch or something like that, I mean, a virus is a fact of life. It is something that happens. I don't think we're going to see, you know, in the end, if you chalk up the number of people who died in 2020, it's not going to look much different than 2015, 16, 17, 18, or 19. I don't think you'd be able to pick them out if they weren't labeled.
Well, my whole point with with talking about the testing was that, you know, this was a mysterious thing. We knew it was airborne. We knew it spread like crazy and was lethal, killed people. And it's killing more people here than anywhere. My whole point with testing is, as long as we're shutting down, as long as we're being careful, wearing masks, doing all of these things on our part, the only way that we can actually effectively dig our way out is by providing the testing on the government's part. And instead, they're giving us these trash 7 days for results tests, which do no one any good. We need asymptomatic people to like take it on the regular and then like quarantine themselves if they have. What's that?
They are trash tests as well. So what do we know about the numbers?
Well, no, I'm saying like I'm sure we're getting positive results from the 7 day test, but in that 7 days, are they quarantining? Probably not. They're asymptomatic. It's just pointless. Whether you accept that it's a problem that we have to worry about or not, if we're going to address things a certain way, you know, and try to work it out a certain way, this is what we came up with, and we're not even going out according to our own plan.
We found out in late April from Italy that it was already hit much harder, that 99% of all the people that died in that country from the COVID-19 were people who already had hypertension, diabetes, or both. So we found that out in April. This isn't hindsight anymore. That was front and center. Why didn't we start making our measures? Just let's take that population and protect them. Why did we shut down an entire economy?
Well, I can tell you that
self-imposed depression.
I can tell you that maybe some of those people would not have died if the hospitals hadn't been overloaded with COVID cases, if it hadn't spread as much. Because what happened in Italy was that doctors had to make a decision of who to treat. And so there were people that had pre-existing conditions that were old, that Italian doctors had to say, we have to let this person die so that we can divert our resources to someone who might be able to be treated and recover from this. So if the hospitals, if they didn't have to make those choices.
Who died with coronavirus in their system died with those two pre-existing conditions. It wasn't like, no, Mr. Diabetic, don't come in.
It was like that. It was like that.
I'm talking about cadavers that tested positive for the virus.
You're saying that the virus didn't kill them because they had comorbidities, right?
I'm saying they were at a higher risk, and that we knew that, and obviously there's another 1% that died just from the virus or just from the virus and something else. But if we knew that people could get this virus, but 99% of them who were gonna die were the people with these comorbidities, why don't we start making a plan around protecting those people?
Well, I don't know how to do that without getting regular testing to those of us who don't have symptoms, because we could spread it. It's basically anybody that's most vulnerable in our society. All the people with these. I didn't quite catch that. I'm saying that like these people all have comorbidities, are generally the oldest, poorest, and sickest of us in our society. The chances that those of us that are not, or like are not experiencing symptoms or whatever, will never interact with them again, as opposed to us getting regularly testing and taking ourselves out of the equation every so often, then like, I mean, yeah, if we can, we're pretty much choosing. I don't know how to do that without like throwing them into camps or deciding it's fine that they all die. You know.
You give them.
All right, go ahead, Mike. 1 second. You're getting really muddly. I can't hear your audio. Try say what you're going to say, but say it pretty loud and clearly.
You let them self-quarantine, you give them a pass from work, you give them a pass from school, and you keep people away from them. And not forever, not for 20 years, not for 50 years. This is our first experience with this particular virus, but it is a coronavirus, just like the common cold, just like the SARS epidemic of 2009. This is why it's SARS-2. We know these things fizzle out, so let them stay at home. And yeah, you'd have to do testing, but this idea that it's the most important thing, like how many SARS-1 tests did you take?
But
that killed 90 million people.
Yeah, but again, where? I mean, and because I can't speak to China's response to, like, or any other government's response, but I know like the amount of people are dying now, and I can see how other countries are dealing with it, and I can see how we're dealing.
Way down.
Go on. Sorry.
The amount of people dying has gone way down and it stayed way down. It's still high, and it's still going to affect people, and people should still take precautions.
I don't see your solution. You said that they don't need to, like the people most vulnerable in our society have to stay home and stay quarantined, and not forever. I don't see how they're not going to do it forever when there are going to be people in our society, healthy people, that can always spread it to them. If it just passes around to healthy people or those without comorbidities.
We can look at the death count. We can look at the provincial death count on the CDC website. We know it's much lower than it was just a few months ago, and we know it hasn't spiked at all. The cases have spiked, the death rate hasn't. We know this thing is fizzling out. We had a SARS-1. This is SARS-2. We had a SARS-1. We know coronavirus patterns. We know it doesn't last forever. So yes, maybe I don't know exactly how long you stay sheltered in place, but you can just take a look at the death rate. You know that it's much lower now than it was before. And maybe you start making your own decision when it's time to come out. And yeah, testing is important. I'm not saying never get a coronavirus test. I'm just saying the fact that you found it so egregious that these things weren't so readily available when that's never happened before. I mean, it's like, I can't believe
none of this has happened before.
Hasn't happened exactly correctly the first time.
Yeah, well, okay. So I think that if we had approached things like you, I don't know that I would have endorsed it, or that like you're suggesting. I don't know that I would think it was a good idea, but we didn't. We chose lockdowns, and we chose almost closing businesses, everybody wearing a mask.
Recession.
What's that?
It was a voluntary recession.
Yeah. So where is the testing in concert with that? That was my whole point. As long as you're doing it, you should do it, right?
Yeah, and I would say just I know that there are people that are against the ideas of lockdowns in general, but one thing that I was seeing as I was looking home to Michigan from here in Western Europe, one of the things that bothered me the most was that people were protesting the lockdown, whereas here we had lockdowns also. But the difference was if you couldn't work because of the lockdown, the government took care of you. And so if the US government was taking care of the citizens that couldn't work and not just giving them $1,200 and a little extra unemployment, then they wouldn't have had to protest the lockdown. So I felt like they were protesting the wrong thing. And that to me was a key issue, that here we could have lockdowns without it having an impact on someone's personal finances. And in the US, it just wasn't possible because the US just won't take care of its citizens. That was my view.
Alex, I absolutely agree with you. And the last thing I didn't get to read the paper today, the Times, but what I hear is that McConnell is not even thinking about a new stimulus until January. So what scares me for the lockdown is that I won't have money coming in to do what I need to do. I totally agree with you. I think you hit it on the head. Take care of your citizens. Everything we're talking about, healthcare, take care of your citizens. Everything we're talking about is U.S. not taking care of their citizens. And that's a problem. I totally agree with you. You're lucky you're over.
Maybe we can give
wanted to add, I agree with Alex somewhat that, if you were going to, I openly oppose the lockdowns. I think Mike has said why very well. But if the government is going to force lockdowns, if the government's going to force a business to close its doors, they should be compensated due to government forcing you out of business, out of work. But I also think more of that should have been handled at the state level because the states are the governments enforcing the lockdowns.
I think he was saying, I'm sorry, Jack. Yeah. I think he was saying that the government should support small businesses too, like if they're locked down, to make sure that they're all set. And I think that what President Trump is having a problem with, like Gretchen Whitmer, shutting things down to protect the citizens and taking care of them. So, she wants to do it the correct way, I think. And he's against that. The government, which goes back to what I have always asked, what does the government do then if you're not taking care of its citizens? If you need to lock it down to keep everybody safe, then you make sure everybody has enough money to get food, pay their bills, utilities, rent. So, I don't think he's been doing that.